A mad scientist, super genius intellect with a massive 5 head to hold all those brains? What else would M.O.D.O.K be if not a supervillain?
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
M.O.D.O.K is a very interesting and yet at the same time very ridiculous looking character from the cocaine era of comics in the 1960s, more specifically 1967, where he first appeared in Tales of Suspense number 94 by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. Technically, his debut is actually in Tales of Suspense number 93, but it was only his voice lines that we could see. Prior to his transformation into M.O.D.O.K, George Tarleton has a few conflicting tales of who M.O.D.O.K was before he became M.O.D.O.K. Sometimes he's referred to as a highly skilled and gifted technician, and in other instances, he's referred to as a person of average or even below average intelligence prior to becoming a supervillain. What I believe is actually the more accurate depiction of his origin is that he was already at the very least a genius even before becoming M.O.D.O.K. Regardless of his early beginnings, what we do know to be true is that he joined up with Advanced Idea Mechanics, otherwise known as AIM, to create the first cosmic cube, something that he didn't necessarily do because he was evil to begin with. It's heavily implied in Hulk Volume 2, number 28, that M.O.D.O.K didn't even know that they were evil. He thought that they were just doing good work, trying to expand the boundaries of science. But ultimately, this led to one of George's colleagues, the Scientist Supreme, to put into action Project M.O.D.O.K, a mental organism designed only for computing, to help break down and analyze all the data from their cosmic cube studies and to facilitate greater productivity on the project overall. George would become this quotey fingers M.O.D.O.K, being forcefully transformed into the super genius that he is today, a move that ultimately led to the Scientist Supreme's downfall, as M.O.D.O.K's superior intellect led to him desiring to be more than just a quotey fingers bean counter and a mental organism designed only for computing, but instead he preferred to become a mental organism designed only for killing, as well as dominating the entire world. The increase in his intellect became not only a mental mutation, but also a physical one, as his cranium grew to accommodate the massive increase in M.O.D.O.K's overall intelligence, to the point that his head became so large his body could no longer support its own weight, leading to him requiring a hover chair to get around. His newfound mental mutation allowed him to not only command superior intellect that granted him nearly unparalleled problem-solving capabilities, as well as tactical strategizing and the ability to intuit nearly any conceivable outcome compared to other humans, but it also gifted him with telekinetic and telepathic abilities, allowing him to both read and control minds, as well as manipulate and move things or even people with his mind, and even create powerful force fields to protect himself and unleash devastating blasts of psionic energy to take down his adversaries. Beyond M.O.D.O.K's mental capabilities, most of his offense is largely associated with his Doom Chair, the hover chair I mentioned earlier. The chair houses weapons of near unimaginable destructive power, but often tend to manifest themselves in the form of highly advanced firearms, saw blades, and all manner of other chicanery. It also enhances his already considerable telepathic and telekinetic abilities, allowing him to go toe-to-toe with some of Marvel's most powerful telepaths. That said, he's no match for the likes of mutants like Charles Xavier, Jean Grey, or Emma Frost. The chair is largely able to power itself, though he has in the past been depicted as charging the Doom Chair by various means. To power the chair, if and when it does require it, could black out the entirety of a city, say the size of Los Angeles. M.O.D.O.K is an incredibly dangerous villain, and while he does look silly, as I mentioned earlier, that doesn't make him any less of a threat. He's designed weapons, devices, androids, and artificial intelligence that have given many heroes in the Marvel Comics universe fits. That said, he's managed on multiple occasions to both take over and lose control of AIM throughout the years, and while he's a highly skilled inventor, most of his creations that he's associated with could just as easily be things created by AIM in general, and oftentimes that's actually the case, as well as some of his other inventions are usually joint efforts with other people. Though he has come up with some pretty nasty inventions like his AI monkeys or AIM monkeys, his mechanized power armor, and all his many gadgets and weapons hidden inside of his Doom chair, those are all of his own design, even turning another human being into a version of himself known as Ms. M.O.D.O.K, so that he could have a wife, a process he was also able to undo with seemingly but a mere thought. He's also responsible for turning Hulk's love interest, Betty Ross, into the Harpy, as well as having a hand in her becoming the Red She-Hulk. Both processes that she's still under the effects of, even as recent as Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk, that ran from 2018 up until 2021. He is also responsible for the creation of the Agents of M.O.D.O.K, the mercenary organization dedicated only to killing. And for a guy you'd expect to not want to get his hands dirty, he's not against throwing hands with superheroes or even supervillains. He's gone toe-to-toe with not only Captain America, Iron Man, the Hulk, Squirrel Girl, and Namor, but also Dr. Doom, the Abomination, as well as Baron Mordo. Currently, M.O.D.O.K has recently recovered from having his powers taken away by Amadeus Cho, who at the time had gained a level of reality warping capabilities due to being caught in the blast of the Cathexis ray that was created by Intelligentsia. Amadeus Cho, who hadn't yet become a Hulk, used his newfound power to warp reality and turn M.O.D.O.K back into his normal human self. This even led to George undergoing therapy to recover from the trauma of being M.O.D.O.K all these years. While M.O.D.O.K was seemingly depowered and turned back to normal, it was actually a part of his Scorched Earth plot, which one of the secret goals of that was to create the next version of M.O.D.O.K, taking a bunch of cloned brains of M.O.D.O.K and cultivating them to the point where one of them became the superior M.O.D.O.K. Hence, he would go on to become M.O.D.O.K Superior. This version of M.O.D.O.K stuck around from 2011, and after multiple failed attempts as M.O.D.O.K Superior to achieve his goals, he would ultimately choose to reinvent himself as a hero, but turning himself into Brodock, a bio-robotic organism designed overwhelmingly for kissing. He even went as far as to try to program himself to be good, but it ultimately backfired as Brodock began slipping back into his old M.O.D.O.K ways. During the events of 2018's West Coast Avengers Volume 3, Number 1, he was still a very villainous character, if a very disarmingly villainous character. This version of M.O.D.O.K, this Brodock, was in fact actually M.O.D.O.K Superior, but he had no memories or recollections of who M.O.D.O.K even was. He believed himself to be an entirely different entity altogether. During his time as Brodock, he was still up to his normal shenanigans. He turned both Tigra and Kate Bishop Hawkeye into giant versions of themselves, with Kate becoming an actual physical Hawk woman. It would be the combined efforts of this West Coast Avengers team that would revert Brodock back into M.O.D.O.K. Not even M.O.D.O.K Superior, just regular M.O.D.O.K. After M.O.D.O.K reverting back to his usual self, we would eventually see him again in Jerry Duggan's X-Men Volume 6, Number 8, where he is now seemingly thrown in his lot with the mutant hate group Orcus as a contracted employee. Now let's get into some recommended reading. Of course, I'm going to recommend you check out Tales of Suspense, Number 94, for M.O.D.O.K's first appearance, where he faces off with Captain America. I'm also going to recommend you check out Incredible Hulk 168, which is the birth of Betty Ross as the Harpy. I'm also going to recommend you check out Ms. Marvel, Volume 2, Number 14 through 17, to see M.O.D.O.K go up against his son, head case, as well as witness M.O.D.O.K's fight to overcome a deadly virus. I'll also recommend you check out Incredible Hulk number 600, as well as 606 through 610. Now, this is less focused on M.O.D.O.K, but you do get to see M.O.D.O.K working with his cohorts, namely the leader in Intelligentsia, and his fight against Amadeus Cho prior to him becoming a Hulk, an encounter that changed M.O.D.O.K almost forever. Speaking of his encounter with Amadeus Cho, I'm also going to recommend you check out Hulk Volume 2, number 28 and 29, as well as issues number 36 through 38, to witness the birth of M.O.D.O.K Superior. And then to follow that up, I will also recommend you check out Secret Avengers Volume 2, number 12 through 16, and Secret Avengers Volume 3, number 1 through 15. This is all one complete story arc that chronicles M.O.D.O.K working alongside S.H.I.E.L.D. and, more importantly, realizing he might just like being on the good guy side, not for the right reasons, but for the right woman. I'll also recommend you check out West Coast Avengers Volume 3, number 1 through 4, to see M.O.D.O.K Superior's evolution into Brodock and his return to being regular M.O.D.O.K. I'm also going to recommend you check out M.O.D.O.K Head Games number 1 through 5 to see M.O.D.O.K fight back against his own company, AIM, in an effort to take back control of it from his rival, Monica Rappaccini. And then last but most certainly not least, I'll recommend M.O.D.O.K Assassin number 1 through 4 to see a different side of the mechanism designed only for killing via a Secret Wars alternate reality where he's teamed up with Thor's sister, Angela, who he's also simping for. M.O.D.O.K is one of those characters I have always thought of as just a goofy villain who I never ever really truly ever took seriously, but he's also a character who I think is just so ridiculous, you almost just have to take him at face value, and trust me, he has a lot of face that you have to take at that value, but if you do, I think you would find a very goofy yet very entertaining character, and when M.O.D.O.K does choose to not be a punching bag or a laughing stock, he actually can be quite formidable, even if he does look like a cocaine fever dream. Not only is M.O.D.O.K a deadly character, but we've also seen moments where he can actually be a good guy, or at the very least, try to do the right thing. And while a lot of times, yeah, it's not for the right reasons every single time, he has proven he has the capacity to be better than his programming. That said, with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania just mere weeks away from releasing, we know we're going to be seeing M.O.D.O.K in the MCU very soon, and while some of the leaked toys that we've seen and leaked pictures that we have also seen circulating on the internet have kind of told us he was going to look one specific way, it actually turns out he's going to look a few different ways, where we've seen in the most recent trailer that while he does seem to have the same look that we have seen from the leaked Funko Pop toys, that he has like a fully metallic face, it actually turns out he has a normal human, well, as normal as a giant human head could look, face underneath all that we will also get to see, that apparently has the internet as divided as it always will be. But that said, I'm looking forward to it, and I hope this helped you learn more about the character of M.O.D.O.K. If you want to know more about other comic book characters, or more about some of my favorite Marvel and DC comics, as well as comics from other imprints, consider clicking subscribe. My goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers in 2023, so if you want to keep up with all the content that I'm going to be putting out throughout the year, make sure you hit subscribe and click that bell button so that way you don't miss anything. In the meantime, let me know what you thought about the history of M.O.D.O.K. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.